Silver bullets and wooden stakes littered the floor around us as we stood in the halls of the Master Monk. Somewhere, in New York, a red Zeppelin burned as it crashed into the water. Batman had done good work, but it didn't seem meaningful. He was just going through the motions, checking off boxes. Hey, I'll cut him some slack though. It was year one. Maybe he'd get into his stride with a couple more villains with colorful names instead of Creatures of the Night and the Scarlet Horde. Or maybe he just needed a partner.
Hi, I'm John.
And I'm Matthew.
And we're the DC Detectives.
It's our job to go back through the annals of DC history and chronicle the evolution of all your favorite heroes from start
to every reversible finish. Alrighty, so it's December 1939. We're on issue 34 of Detective Comics. So Bruce is in Paris still, which is a weird thing because the issue before this is the Scarlet Horde in New York. I don't know if you caught that.
I didn't.
So I was writing my notes and I'm going, this I think is more evidence to the point of the Scarlet Horde issue was current events specific and timed specifically for the fact that this was occurring, which is also why I think Bill Finger wrote it, because Gardner Fox probably had this as like the Paris trilogy. Like three stories that are in Europe for Batman, and I'm wondering if it's one of those things where they go, hey, look, we gotta hold off on your third story because Nazis and war in Poland. Can we do this other thing that we had, Bill Finger write? Yours is coming out. It's just going to come out a month later. And I think at this point he probably wouldn't have cared because it was just, I'm getting writing credit. Gardner Fox does a lot of comics writing further down the line for DC. So does Bill Finger. Bill Finger's credited with a lot of Batman villains, a lot of character creation. Gardner Fox, I think, has written some like 4,000 DC stories for different titles.
Holy God.
He's a very, very prolific writer. But he writes, I think, Justice League, Legion of Superheroes, very outlandish titles that have more sci-fi, more magic in them than Batman usually gets. Which is why it feels strange for Batman when you have werewolves and things like that. Or, for instance, Batman's walking down the streets of Paris, leaving his hotel as Bruce Wayne, and he goes like, hey, that guy looks like my friend Jed Farnell. Turns the guy around, the guy has no face. If you're a fan of The Question like I am, I was like, holy crap, it's The Question. Yeah. And it's
even
not.
Wearing green and everything.
Right. But the best part is the guy says, I don't blame you. I gave you a shock not having any face. Don't worry, I'm sorry. It's so weird because the guy just leaves and Bruce says, that's mighty queer, a man without a face. I'd like to look into this, but, and then it just cuts off. There's no ... There's no hyphen.
And that's the point where he goes back to New York and fights not Nazis.
You would think, but then we get another panel of a blonde woman going, oh my God, this Duc d'Orter, or I don't know how you would pronounce
Probably it. Duc d'Orter.
Duc d'Orter.
And I did look it up. Near as I can tell, there is no area or title remotely like Orter.
Okay, but it's a duke in English terms.
Yeah.
Some duke is threatening her, but this guy is Duc d'Orter, master of the Apaches. And I really, really tried not to cringe at that, because we're going to exposit a bit here that the Apaches were a gang in Europe, and they were called the Apaches because Europeans equated their savagery to Native Americans. And that's really not okay. Because Native Americans are lovely people. And yes, like all cultures, they have their own types of warfare and bad parts of history, because we all have dirty parts of our history. But to equate European savagery with probably people you've never met or seen or had any contact with at this point, other than like nickel and dime Western novels, is really insensitive.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah, it's a very these are a very strange group of people. There's movies about them. There's Italian films about them. Like,
of course.
This was a thing in Europe, and you'd probably, if you were from Europe, you probably knew about this, and you're like, ooh, okay. But I have no idea if circulation for these comics was getting to Europe. But regardless, this blonde woman gets into a cab, which of course Bruce Wayne is also in, because how else would the plot move forward?
It's the Horseman.
While they're in the cab, a knife is thrown at them, and it lands into the back wall of the cab. And I'm just sitting here going, are the cab windows open? It's a soft top cab. What's happening here?
It's better. Look at the arrangement of where they're sitting between the two panels. At some point,
They switch?
she moves towards where the knife hit.
Oh my god, she does. She enters frame from the left, Bruce is sitting on the right, and then in the next panel, she's on the right, Bruce is on the left, in a way that suggests that she's almost pushed him out of the way of the knife, but really what's happening is, I guess, he's pulled her out of the way because he sees it, because of course it's Batman. Batman, at this point, is doing the saving, not being saved. Bruce, of course, tells her to get out of the cab. He runs with her on the streets. She faints, and No-Face shows up again. And No-Face, I'm just going to call him that from now on.
He has a name.
Charles Maire, which, again, the question's name is Charlie Victor Sage.
Really?
Yeah, so Charlie, I really hope someone was a big student of Batman and just decided to make the question this guy. And the blonde woman is his sister, and he says, look, we've had a run-in with the Duke before. We met him at a mask ball. He wanted his sister, but when he interfered, the Duke used a machine to remove his face. We're going to gloss over that because these are comics.
And specifically, this is this era of Batman comics. I counted it up. The Ruby story that we're going to get to later is only the second no magic, no super sci-fi story.
Weird.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, Batman at this point is not just dealing with crazy psychopaths. More to the point, he's just dealing with super tech all the time.
Or a cult.
Well, yeah. And the cult also had super tech.
Right, that's true. If you read Hellboy. So Bruce decides, well, this is no good. I'm gonna help you guys out, and reveals his identity to these two people. And
Does he? Let's
put it this way.
Really weird.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that he does, because the line at the top of the panel where he comes back as Batman says, Bruce Wayne disappears, but the Batman enters. And the woman says, I have heard of you, the Batman, and the man, No-Face, just says, I will give you instructions, and may the Lord help you. I'm assuming they know. Because why would he give this man instructions if he's just like, who are you?
The other line that I like is Bruce actually says, as myself, I cannot help you.
Right, so
we're
going to chalk this up to he has revealed his identity to these two French people.
The first people.
These are the first people that he ever reveals his identity to, and it's two French people that he's never met before in his life.
Well, we're not actually sure they're French.
We're not, true, but
his name certainly is French. Her name is not really.
It isn't.
Carol.
Yeah, but
Karel.
That's true. So, Batman goes into the sewers where apparently the Apaches are known to hang out, because why not? These guys are blue berets, red shirts, nice ascots, blue pants. They look really fun. Batman beats the crap out of them. He's choking one guy, being like, where's the Duke? Where's the Duke? And of course the Duke shows up. And
in the sewers, looking spiffy.
He looks like he just came from the opera. He's got a cape, he's in a tux. He also, however, has the Dr. Death head. He's got the elongated head, he's got pointy ears, he's got a mustache. I want to say he actually looks like Sinestro. It's really strange design choice. That
the super thin mustache.
I'm curious as to who decided that villains had to have pointy ears. Strange European villains or strange intellectual villains had to have pointy ears. Is that a statement on something?
I would actually say it's probably, for a villain, you probably either want all lines and harsh angles, or you want something that's intentionally like beaten and misshapen. So I'd say ears are probably a reflection of that. And in this case, he's very much the refined gentleman villain. So
it's just interesting to me because his silhouette looks very much like the old Batman hood.
Yeah, all right.
And that's just correct, weird to me. Batman makes a flying leap towards the Duke, but is stopped by a blinding light, which shoots forth from the end of the Duke's cane. We're not sure what that is. That's never mentioned again.
Super tech.
But the Duke takes Batman, brings him back to his castle or base of operations, I would assume. And there's a giant stone wheel that he puts Batman on, and he calls it the Wheel of Chance. I don't know why. There's nothing to do with luck in any of this theme.
No, he actually does. He does say there's a chance you'll be thrown off or you'll be driven mad by staying on it. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
It's a 50% chance.
I genuinely wanted to do the math to figure out, like, okay, how much momentum does this thing have? Because there's a point where...
You don't need to. Batman's done it. Batman knows everything. Batman's done the math. In fact, Batman doesn't need to, because Batman legit just breaks out of the bond.
And this happens every single time in every of the issues that we go through. Anytime where Batman is conscious and tied up, he will tense and break the bonds every single time.
So strange. It's so weird. And I guess, he's that strong, but those look like leather straps. But like you would
I think they're actually explicitly called out in...
Yeah, they're leather thongs is what they're called. Normally you gotta pay extra for those.
I have to imagine that's uncomfortable.
Oh god, it is, I'm sure. But he breaks out and he's flipping around on this wheel thing, and the Duke's freaking out, but he's just like, wow, okay, well, just spin it faster, something's gonna hurt him. And Batman gets launched off the wheel into a room full of flowers with faces. And we're not kidding here. This is some weird Alice in Wonderland stuff.
I dug around, and I actually think there might be some Alice in Wonderland stuff. Other than that, I don't see any mythological figures of plants with human faces, at least of flowers. However, here's my headcanon. You mentioned that it's just generally not addressed afterwards, and it makes no sense. I'm actually going to posit. Those are all of the faces of the people he's wiped the faces off of. Which makes it really weird.
It does. So Duke Dorter's flower garden is full of the faces of people whose faces he's wiped off.
That's my guess.
That's
all I can
I wanted to say Batman's lost it because of the spinning around. All the blood's gone to his head, and he's tripping.
But right at the moment where he
I like yours better.
Yeah.
Yours is way cooler and makes the Duke way scarier. Mm-hmm. But that's like really strange to me that this is a thing. Like Batman even says, "Am I going mad?" And then we do the next panel is the Duke.
Is that his first moment of doubt?
Possibly. And then outside we see the Duke watching Batman. And you know what? It can't be in his head because when the Duke is watching Batman, the flowers have faces in the picture.
Right.
This has to be real. This has got to be a real thing. These flowers
is messed up.
This is really strange because so the Duke is totally aware that there's a garden full of face flowers,
and he has a window
into
set
it
up
to see it because he's super creepy.
Yep.
I love it. So the Duke sends for the blonde girl and No Face to get captured. They're brought to this castle. He, of course, does the damsel in distress thing, takes the girl, but he puts No Face on the wheel. And the flowers, interestingly enough, are giving Batman ideas. Meanwhile, the Batman seems to hear the flowers murmur. I send my thoughts to you, stranger. You must release us. Follow the hedge to a glass door, which leads to the wheel room. The rest is up to you. That is a very conscious flower that has a face. Also, that's got to be a victim that knows this stuff. So I think you're right. That's what's going on here. They just never let Gardner Fox explain that.
He may also not have wanted to, or just too much time, because this is actually a longer story.
This is a longer story than normal we've seen. This is closer to the 12-page one. Mm. So he is getting longer stories. Batman goes to the wheel room, sees No Face tied up. He frees No Face with his... Gosh. He's got to use those weird ropes every time. And
Does it specifically call out the silk ropes?
His rope. It just says his rope now. So it's no longer silken according to Gardner Fox, but that's debatable.
Also, for the record, however fast that was going to be able to hurl people
it would just
into another room.
It would just rip his arms off. It would rip Batman's arms off. He gets No Face, takes him out, dresses No Face back in his coat and hat. He's like, by the way, I found these. No Face also doesn't seem to have a neck with the way things are drawn. He just looks like a flat
He's
figure.
popped his collar.
Yes, he's popped his collar.
That cool.
Batman finds his plane, the Bat plane, which is still also the Bat helicopter plane. And what's really weird now is the Bat plane is starting to look more and more Bat-like. Mm-hmm. I didn't mention this back in the in the Scarlet Horde episode, but the plane looks very decidedly like an actual bat, and it's kind of creepy. So he's flying this thing. He finds the Duke in his car. He rope ladders down off the Bat helicopter plane.
Gets actually a pretty good pose. Let the record show.
Oh, this is a great shot.
I think we are starting to see a major improvement in the art throughout.
Yeah, Bob Kane is really coming into his style. He's really getting good at what he's doing. Batman has it out with the Duke on this car. He saves the girl because the girl kicks the Duke into the window so Batman can get to him.
Female agency.
Woo! He gets the Duke, beats the crap out of him, jumps to his rope ladder, and watches the Duke fall to his death in the car. That's body count 1.
Well,
for this episode.
Well, no. 2. The driver, who is explicitly not the Duke. There is a separate driver who has no participation in the fight.
someone was driving the car the whole time.
And you can see 2 separate "yeah" sound effects.
Oh my god, yeah. I was
Yep.
like, maybe the Duke was driving, but no, like, you're right. There had to be a driver, and that happened.
And
Wow.
he tells the driver to go faster or something like that. Like,
Right.
earlier.
That's sad. So Batman kills 2 people, and the young girl, Carol, says, "You've been wonderful to us. Mere words can't express how much we appreciate it, but won't you tell us who you are?" At the end, the last panel, "That, my dear, must be kept a secret. And now, au revoir." But didn't she know?
Well, again, we're getting back to that question. Did they actually know?
Oh, gosh. Well, I think they do. I think she's just being silly. So, we're going to go to the next issue, which is a fun one. It's the Ruby Idol issue, or
Yep.
whatever it's called. But the big panel is Batman's got a gun.
Yep.
Batman's got a gun, and it's smoking, and he's, like, ready to pop some guys. It's kind of scary. Bruce is hanging out with the Commissioner again.
What color is the Commissioner's hair right now?
Right, I noticed this. Okay, the Commissioner is decidedly younger in this issue. He's got brown hair as opposed to the silver hair in which we see him in the first issue of Batman. Someone is either inconsistent or someone has decided to make Gordon younger.
And it's going to keep happening.
It does.
We're going to see different hair colors.
It switches
a couple
back
times.
and forth several times.
Oh, it's not just between brown and white as well.
That's true. It does switch. So Bruce and the Commissioner are talking, and a guy comes in and he says, "Hey, look, there's a threat on my life. The guy who sold me this beautiful ruby idol is dead. I got a threat from these people saying that they were going to come take it as vengeance for the god, Keela. And I need protection." They're like, "All right, fine, we'll look into it." Of course, Commissioner Gordon, doing more work than a commissioner should be doing, he goes to investigate it himself, and of course, why not invite your young man friend along?
You keep saying it.
I'm
that.
never gonna not now. It's also described as a Hindu idol, and these are Hindu worshippers, and you can tell because they've got no shirts on and they have turbans, and that's just super racist. This is Jabba racist.
There's a lot here to unpack, and we're going to do that at the end of the issue because there is stuff that develops throughout that does kind of change how you might want to interpret it.
Right.
But if you hear me just sigh in the background,
There's
understand why.
There's just a lot going on. And so Bruce and the Commissioner chase after these guys that they see who have kidnapped a man, and as they're chasing after him, they kill the dude in the car, and they dump him in the water. No body count for Batman here. This guy got killed. And the Commissioner's like, "Do you want to keep hanging out with me?" And Bruce just says, "No, I think I'm going to write a story about this one day." Because that's what Bruce does, apparently, is he's just like a guy who writes interesting stories. We're going to cut to a man named Sin Fang, and it's not terribly racist portrayal, but still a stereotypical old Asian man running a curio shop look. He's just plodding away, saying some throwaway dialogue. We're just being shown him. The man who came into Commissioner Gordon initially, Commissioner Gordon's hair is gray now. The man who came into Commissioner Gordon, the first place says, "Hey, you can take your men away now. The Ruby Idol is in a burglar-proof case, and I'm sure I'm safe enough." Because that's the last thing anyone ever says when they get killed. And so Bruce decides to steal it himself. Because this is he's gonna check it out, I guess. Like when the police
that's more the vibe that I got.
He says when the police are away, the rats will play. I think the Batman will take a hand in this game. So Bruce goes to investigate, and it looks like there are just regular mobsters there to try and steal it themselves. This is the first time we're actually really seeing Batman backchat in fights. And it's "Need any help, boys?" as he surprised them. And "Don't you know it's dangerous to play with knives?" Batman's awfully chatty.
I feel like there was one instance a little bit earlier in, but I think this is actually one of the first character moments for Batman. I think mostly it's later on. But yeah, we're absolutely starting to see Batman as kind of the wisecracking, punch-happy hero.
So Batman finishes the fight with these guys after, chatting with them. And suddenly the Hindus appear. And they kind of get the drop on Batman. They get the statue. The police arrive, and they see that Batman is there with the statue gone. And they think he did it, of course, so he's got to escape. This is, again, some more instances of the police not being on par or not being so happy with Batman.
It's worth noting, I thought that this was one of the early instances of it, but it's actually the second issue that we looked at.
Right.
The jewel heist. They thought Batman was doing.
They shoot after him while he escapes. Batman goes to his super-powered roadster, which is like
a different color. It's a different car.
It's Batman colored, and it's got no top. And it's kind of got like an angry grill face, almost kind of bat-like, but not really. It's kind of almost got a shape to it, but it's...
You could see it being like a part of Brave Little Toaster.
Yes.
You could see it being a car that rages against the compactor at the end.
It's a car that has a face. So he goes to Sin Fang, where because the Hindus have stopped in front of Sin Fang's place to go inside. But he goes instead to a local man, Wong, who's the unofficial mayor of Chinatown, apparently. And he says, hey, do you know anything about this guy? And the guy, of course, helps him. He says, hey, I can tell you what I want, but that guy is kind of shifty. He kind of deals with stolen goods. Batman goes to Sin Fang, and Sin Fang just says, like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll help you. But, of course, opens a room, and Mongols come out? And these are guys with, like, no shirts, top knots.
Not just top knots. I'm pretty sure those are cues.
Yeah, and they've got big old curved swords, and it's just a mess right now. There's something going on. There's a lot of Asia going on in this episode.
And the Q, I don't think would have any relevance if they are, in fact, Mongols.
Right. So Batman is fighting these guys, and he throws one of them into the other guy's sword, body count for Batman, and knocks the other dude out. Sin Fang's like, oh, I'm so sorry, that was a mistake. And goes, this room, go in here. And of course there's mustard gas in that room. Batman throws a glass vial, and the pellet smashes against the wall, and the glass pellet quickly mixes with the deadly mustard gas and makes it harmless. I don't think that's a thing that you can do.
I actually tried to look it up briefly. I didn't invest too much time. I couldn't find anything, but, it's Batman.
Maybe he's got an anti-mustard gas. And then he, again, third time's the charm, Batman falls for another trap from Sin Fang, who keeps apologizing and saying that, like, I'm so sorry, man, this is so weird that this keeps happening. And grabs onto a pipe that this trapdoor has in it, because there's a pipe leading down into the pit, and he escapes, comes out, and watches Sin Fang from afar, because Sin Fang thinks he's won, and the guy wipes off yellow face makeup, and it's the dude who sold the idol to begin with. So he didn't get killed in the car by the Hindus. That was just a ruse to throw everybody off of his trail so he could sell this idol, and then Batman's like, you're a piece of shit, dude. What the hell? And the guy pulls a gun, he shoots at Batman. Batman chucks the idol at him, knocks him in the face with it. The guy falls out the window, hits the pavement, and we see blood. That guy is so dead. That's another body count for Batman. That's like a lot happening.
So one thing I actually do want to bring us around to. So let's think about what just happened there. We had a fight with two minions. We had a gas trap. And we had a pit trap followed by an encounter with the boss. Now, does that remind you, perchance, of, say, a role-playing system like Dungeons & Dragons?
A little bit, yeah.
So I'm glad that we agree with that, because Batman, if we assume that Batman is a 7th level monk, these three traps and the final encounter with Sheldon Lennox are enough XP for Batman to level up to 8, and he gets 4,400 GP and 50 plus 1 arrows.
That's amazing that you found that. And I think you're right. Batman would be classified as a monk because he's a hand-to-hand fighter. That's incredible.
And specifically, 7th level makes sense because it's at a point where monks, at least in 3rd edition D&D, which are the books I happen to have handy, stop having vertical height restrictions to how high they can jump.
That's cool. I'm actually glad that we know Batman's D&D class now. Second point here also, this is Detective Comics number 36. Batman is on 2 covers in a row. That's kind of a nifty, thing for him. He's been rotating covers with some story and then it's Batman and then some story and then it's Batman. Now he's 2 covers in a row. He's graduated.
It's worth noting, the covers are almost always using characters from the previous story.
Right.
It's a little odd.
Right, so the cover for the last story had Duke d'Orterre on it, or a guy similar to him. This cover has 2 Mongols on the front of it, even though it has nothing to do with that.
And can we actually flip back to that really quickly?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on in this story.
A Chinese man in charge of Mongols, but using Hindus to steal things?
But it's worth noting, it specifically says that they were fake Hindus as part of the plot. That's the thing, is there is so much here that's part of the scam that's like, I can't tell if that's actually culturally insensitive or just the character using the
cultural tropes to kind of like
tropes,
sell
the
this.
Stereotypes, yeah. So presumably these were fake Hindus. Presumably some pieces of the legends that they associate with the idol are not there, but if Gardner Fox, well, whomever it was,
this is actually Finger.
Okay,
this is Bill Finger wrote the Case of the Ruby Idol.
If he actually thought that was valid, okay. So I did some digging, and the closest I could find was that Kali. Okay, working a little bit off of memory instead of my notes. Kali is associated with not necessarily destruction, but sort of divine wrath. Is considered to be an aspect of Parvati, who is the consort of Shiva. So there is this character who is kind of like that, but more divine wrath, less destruction, and less
And you're thinking about this is because the idol is called Kila.
Yes.
And not Kali.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that somewhere along someone said, hey, Mr. Finger, here's this cool story. Kali, goddess of destruction. Okay, I'm going to work with that. But this must be a game of telephone because, man, it'd be roughly equivalent to, I guess the closest thing I could think of is saying, this is Mary, goddess of awesome, and here's a statuette of her.
Done. I got it. Best story ever. So the next story is Batman just patrolling, doing Batman stuff, and he witnesses a drive-by. And the man, as he's dying, says to Batman, fog, strange, fog, strange, and then dies. Bruce kind of loots him, finds a little notebook.
Keeping with the D&D
That's what he does. He loots him. He loots the corpse, finds a notebook, runs off. The police are now shooting at Batman again. This is another issue where the police are adversaries to Batman. He goes home and reads the notebook, and the notebook is about a fog and a list of banks. And at the bottom, he kind of just reads into this that this guy is a G-man. He's an FBI agent.
He doesn't read into it. The end of that page actually says, if this book is found, please return to the FBI.
Oh, that's not going to give you away if you're an undercover
Exactly.
agent.
And that's straight up, that's what he is. He was in the car with the guys. That's not a drive-by.
It looks like he escaped the car, got shot, and now, like, they must have found him out. They must have found out that he was an agent. So then he goes, oh, of course, the FBI is not going to get the book till I clear the Batman's name of suspicion of murder. And he starts, like, again, thinking about, like, who do I know who does stuff like this? And we get the first shot of Dr. Hugo Strange, who is a well-known Batman villain. Those of you who may be familiar with him from the Arkham City game, he's the guy that runs Arkham City. And this is, again, Batman knows things. Professor Hugo Strange, the most dangerous man in the world, scientist, philosopher, and a criminal genius. Little is known of him, yet this man is undoubtedly the greatest organizer of crime in the world. Bruce just knows things. Because, no, he can't have trouble. It's too early, too few pages. Bruce has to know things. So, Strange is going to be using this fog as a cover to steal from these banks, and the city gets hit at several of these spots. Bruce is like, okay, I gotta just stake out one of these joints and stop him. So, it's I guess a delivery of silver? At the Sterling Silver Company, these guys are gonna, like, jack a sterling silver shipment. Batman shows up. And again, just lots of goofy dialogue for Batman.
One thing that I do want to call out, not only is it goofy in the line, somebody took the time, so the criminals, the robbers, are carrying out boxes of presumably silver.
Right.
Take a look. One of them, when getting hit, one of them, they fall, and the box is in the air. They've chucked it in the air. It's falling. Someone took the time to write "handle with care" on that.
And by someone, you mean Bob Kane. Probably.
Bob Kane is awesome.
Bob Kane knows what's up. It's so funny thinking about Batman smack talking. Don't you think you would better keep 2 eyes on me? Batman never talks. Batman either never talks or he scares the crap out of people. It's Robin's job to be goofy. So Batman's beat the crap out of these guys. He says, this ought to get the police force here. Shoots a gun off. Just shoots a gun off that he's got. Disappears. Strange reads about how Batman's foiled his plan. They basically plan a trap for Batman at the next location. They start doing a robbery. Batman shows up. There's too many guys for him. He can't handle them. And eventually, he gets knocked out from behind by a blackjack. One of the guys picks him up. They take him to Hugo Strange. Strange whips Batman? They hang him up by his wrists. Strange, who is dressed in very classy dinnerwear, takes off his dinner jacket, rolls up his sleeves, and just begins to whip Batman in a very uncomfortable situation that you're just like, this is like what you wanted to do to him? You don't want to kill him, you want to whip him? Also, Strange is jacked.
It is. I actually don't have a good feel of modern Hugo Strange. No. Is he still portrayed as that kind of mixture of both fairly beefy and really smart?
No, he's an intellectual. He's usually the guy who's like the psychiatrist at Arkham. Mm-hmm. He's not a guy you fight. He's a guy you put away. He's like Riddler. Not like wiry like you would imagine Riddler is, but like not a fighter. I never think of Hugo Strange fighting. And it's just so funny because, Batman, of course, again, breaks out of his bonds with his own strength, tosses a gas pellet, everybody starts to leave the room. Batman and Strange duke it out. Batman beats him up, arrests him. And then he finds this kidnapped engineer that he had read about previously, who has been used to make this fog. Finds the guy. They dismantle the machine.
Clarify for me,
yes,
for me, if you will, what exactly is creating the fog?
It doesn't really say. It's a discovery of making concentrated lightning, and that's it. A concentrated lightning.
Lightning
is making fog.
Do they just mean repeated lightning strikes, like almost like a Tesla coil kind of thing? Or do they actually think that there is a separate kind of lightning that you can create?
Well, if I've learned anything from DC Comics, it says there's lightning and there's magic lightning, because when Captain Marvel says Shazam, the lightning can enter a room.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think of that.
So there is 2 types of lightning, at least in the DC universe, but I don't think this is...
So we've got some magitech going on.
It's possibly. This is more occult tech than we've seen. And this guy's an electrical engineer, so maybe it is something electric. Batman, of course, dismantles the machine with this engineer's help. The fog goes away. The criminals are kidnapped. But it's interesting that the radio is reporting that Batman is clearly being helpful. And so, we citizens of this city owe our thanks to one man, the Batman. Because of him, an arch-criminal is at last captured. Who is the Batman, Daddy? A great man, son. A great man. That is a really weird panel.
Very.
It's super weird, because no one talks about Batman like that.
We're going to see a little more of that kind of feel-good kind of stuff in later issues as well. Now, one thing I actually do want to talk about. For you, a lot of your early exposure to DC, in my understanding, was very much the animated series.
Yes.
Looking at this issue, so you've got fog, you've got police. The reason that the police are so useless during this is because they can't see very far. You have this gloomy city. You have Hugo Strange. Some of his shots are like looming shadows cast behind him. A little bit of super science. Is this an animated series episode?
Oh, absolutely.
This feels like it has that same kind of gloominess, dirigibles overhead.
This is very that is very much an animated series episode, in the sense that it's cartoonish. Mm-hmm. It's a man stealing. Hugo Strange is a supervillain, and because he uses super science to steal things, he's a criminal. And he's able to give Batman a run for his money, fighting-wise. He's a supervillain, and it's a very interesting comparison to, like, say, the Duke, or Dr. Death, or, gosh, the Master Monk. Even Master Monk wasn't really a thing. He just hypnotized people, and Batman shot him. Like, the Duke, and Dr. Death, and Hugo Strange are the only people I've seen fight Batman actively. And this is an animated series episode. I think you're absolutely right. Because the next one is Batman foiling, like, spies. Which is really super weird because that is so, like, a war fear.
Well, I actually think this is a really well-constructed episode, or issue, but I'll go into why once we wrap up.
So we have Batman patrolling around in his super awesome car, and he hears screams coming from the house.
I don't think he's patrolling, actually.
Oh yeah, he's lost his way on a lonely road. Batman, not using GPS. He's lost his way, and he sees a lone house in the distance. He wants to go ask for directions, and because you're going to ask directions as Batman. Hey, I'm lost. I know I look really strange, but how do I get back?
And he's not lost on, like, highways or anything. He's lost right next to a house in the woods. Yeah, he's gone on back roads.
Yeah, he's definitely outside of the city.
He just got back from Paris.
Right, he's driving back from Paris.
Which is apparently a coastal town.
Of course it is. Batman hears screaming from inside. He sees that a man is being tortured. He begins to, save this guy. He beats up all the bad guys. And the guy he frees knocks him out and then shoots all the other men in the room. And then when Batman wakes up, he's like, wow, I didn't do that, did I? Like, Batman, are you in the habit of shooting people? No, you kill them in various different ways, but you don't shoot them. At least not unless you're vampires.
Can we get George Clooney to say, did I do that?
I hope we could. If we had the power, we would. So Batman's reading the notes that one of these guys has on them. And finds out there's a grocery store, and it's kind of one of these things where it's like a false front operation. He goes into the grocery store, pretends to order some stuff, and sees a guy that he thinks is the criminal inside, and goes, "This is clearly the place I need to go," because the guy is called Turg, and he sees the name Turg on the list. He's like, "Oh, okay, I got to come back as Batman." Comes back as Batman. While these guys are discussing what they're going to do, they're going to do something at the docks. They're not sure what, but it's revealed later that they're going to blow up a boat. Batman knocks the lights out in a very Batman move to make everybody fight in the dark, but puts on red sunglasses.
They look like Cyclops'
They look
goggles.
like Cyclops' like ruby quartz like civilian sunglasses that he wears. Like,
they honestly, to me, they almost even look like the goggles.
They could look like the goggles. You're right, but he's got these on, and apparently they're night vision goggles.
It's better. It's better. What's the exact phrasing? To see?
The Batman can now see in the dark as would a real bat.
So he can see like they hear.
Right. This is more Bat gear, though. More Bat gear is being introduced.
And fighting in the dark. That's the first time we've seen that. And that's such a Batman move.
Yeah, to almost not even level the playing field, to make them put them on worse footing.
This is the first time he's scaring people like Batman. Instead of just holding people out a window like, well, I guess modern Batman. This is, we're going to fight in the dark, and you're going to lose.
And I'm going to kick the crap out of you because I can fight in the dark and you can't. But not because he can see in the dark or knows how to fight in the dark. It's more so that he has gear.
But also, there's sort of that morally stronger, I live here. I'm afraid of nothing, except apparently the loss of my parents.
Right. He leaves them to think about the fact that he kicked the crap out of him. And they find the guy that shot all the other bad guys, the guy that Batman saved in the beginning. They're like, "You're a traitor. How else would he know we were here?" And then they stab him and they kill him. I wouldn't say that's Batman's fault because the guy knocked Batman out and then went back.
Batman should have thought about this. He should have
at least protected him, but he kind of lets this guy get killed. So he goes to the dock. These guys are going to put a bunch of dynamite on a speedboat and just run it into the ocean liner. It looks like Batman's there. They're fighting. Batman gets knocked out. They put him in a sack. They drop him into the water. Batman, of course, has a knife on him and cuts out of the sack, gets out, fights the guys. Oh my god, come on, suckers, says Batman. Oh my god, why?
See, I actually don't mind it as much.
I don't mind it, but it's so funny.
This isn't my Batman, but it's very clear we're moving towards 1960s comedic Batman.
Adventures Batman. Popcorn Adventures Batman.
Yeah.
And so he's got to get on this boat, so Batman sprints to catch the boat before it leaves the dock, gets on the boat, cuts the ropes that are making it stay on a straight course, spins it away. Has averted some sort of war, because he initially finds out that these guys are spies, and goes to Turg's home, finds that Turg is kind of disguising himself, and because he is
Other way around.
He's not disguising himself?
Or Turg was the disguise.
Turg was his disguise, but he finds out that this guy is a, I want to say like a socialite.
Count Grut.
Count Grut, who is really a foreign agent. Grut throws a saber at Batman. Batman opens the door and catches the saber on the door, which is really kind of a cool move. They start fighting, they're fighting. Batman shoves him back into the door with the saber and kills Grut by, like, impaling his neck on the saber. That's body count for Batman. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where Batman has foiled another terrorist plot. And this is very reminiscent to me of the Lusitania.
Well, it's... yes, to a degree. But more than that, this is the first issue that makes sense, really. So let's go through it. First off, things that you may or may not have noticed. I didn't notice it on my first read-through. So, Grut and Turg, backwards. But it gets better. It gets better. Because the name of his, when he is masquerading as Turg, to hire these thugs, he is Elias Turg. Elias, written very much like Alias.
Oh, goodness gracious. I didn't see that at all.
But even beyond that, okay, so we've got, haha, kind of funny stuff. But we have someone who's very heavily coded as German nobility. And it's worth remembering. Nowadays, we look back on Germany in the two world wars, and the ultimate evil is Nazis. But at this point, so this is 1940, March 1940 specifically. So we're very early in. Really, the menace of Germany in World War I, the generally accepted evil of Germany, was the Kaiser, was the warmongering, and the Kaiser being the head of German nobility. Even at this point, even in World War II, the professional core of the German army was, by and large, Prussian nobility. They were the ones who were in the high rankings. 9 out of the 16 field marshals in the Wehrmacht in World War II were some form of German nobility. So you really have, this is, I think, the face of the German fear at this point, that in addition, we don't have like the fanatical SS man right now. Instead we have, here is the warmongering German nobility.
It's not a crowd, it's Kaiser.
Yes, it's exactly that. Okay. One of the podcasts that I'm a huge fan of, Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, made the excellent point that the best piece of PR that the Kaiser ever got was Hitler. Because in comparison to Hitler, the Kaiser is just this...
He's noble.
No, I wouldn't go that far. But more not competent enough and didn't really understand that war wasn't a game like everybody else. He didn't know the consequences. He was war happy, but so was pretty much everybody. And at the time, he was the face of the Kraut, this savage beast. You've seen that.
The Hun.
Yeah, you've seen that picture of the dark gorilla with the white woman, stop this brute. That was the Kaiser. And I think this is an instance of that's still the face of the German fear at this point.
Currently, yeah.
And then in a year or so, will stop having that.
It's going to be scarier.
Yep. And the plot actually makes sense because the name of the ship is the Ronij. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. Ronij, which is a Polish name. So realistically, the idea is that they're going to blame the U.S. false flag operation for the destruction of this Polish ship. Even if it's not the Polish government, if the Allies had felt, hey, shipping out of an East Coast American port is not a safe place, if Americans are that up in arms against the Allied cause, if they're that much fascist sympathizers, you build tension between the U.S. and the Allies, which, you know what? This plan makes sense. This issue makes sense.
This is almost too cerebral for a Batman comic.
It's way more real than
this is the most realistic one. Even more so than, of course, the Scarlet Horde. The Scarlet Horde had its own sci-fi element to it.
That was allegorical.
It was allegorical, but this is scary. This is a Tom Clancy book.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I could see Jack Ryan in that.
Yeah. So the next issue Again, Batman's still on the cover. Number 38, Detective Comics. Big splash. Batman holding a circular paper sort of thing that you kind of see people, like circus people jump through. Jumping through it is everyone's recognizable favorite sidekick, Robin. And the title reads, the sensational character find of 1940, Robin, the Boy Wonder. Now, I'm going to take a second here. Robin is written in very flowy medieval script. This is the thing that's going to bother me to no end, and I'm going to get into this very much in the end. But this is the Robin origin issue, and it's incredible. And I love it so much because it's Robin's origin, and we see the Haley Circus. It's things are starting to look very familiar the more familiar you are with Batman, and the more you are looking for nostalgia out of this. So we see Haley Circus. Dick Grayson hears that Haley is being leaned on by these guys to pay money. Haley refuses to pay because he's an honest man. And the next night, Dick's family is killed because there's poison put on the ropes of their trapeze act, and they fall to their death. Acid, sorry, correct. Acid is put on the ropes of their trapeze, and they fall to their death. Dick sees this, is terrified. After the show, Haley has to, of course, pay these guys because they just killed two of his acts. They're serious. Bruce finds Dick as Batman. Says, hey, sorry about your folks. I want to help you get revenge. Help you get the guys that did this to your family. And the kid's like, yeah, let's do it. Strange man in a costume. I've grown up in the circus. You're not the weirdest thing I've seen.
That's right.
So Bruce takes him back to his mansion, reveals his identity, makes him swear an oath by candlelight.
So this is actually the first person he's revealed himself to.
Yeah, this is in canon. We're not, no argument. He reveals himself to Dick Grayson. He's showing Dick how to do acrobatic tricks, and he goes, as far as swinging on ropes, you could probably teach me a thing or two. So Bruce is acknowledging Dick's skill. And then we see them teaching each other how to fight, teaching judo moves and boxing, and he gets the green Speedo, red vest suit with the yellow cape. They tell you it is Robin Hood is the namesake. And I don't understand why Robin Hood. Because in the beginning here, the very first page, it says, a laughing, fighting young daredevil who scoffs at danger like the legendary Robin Hood, whose name and spirit he has adopted. Robin, the Boy Wonder. They don't steal from rich people. They don't give money back. They stop injustice. But that was Robin Hood's thing, was fighting the injustice of the sheriff and King John.
Well, I'm actually curious now, because I admit I don't know necessarily a ton about the Robin Hood myth and also that particular piece of history. It might actually be more just injustice from an organized crime. I'm trying to remember bits and pieces, but if memory serves, that was John, while Richard was away, being held hostage in Germany. In that case, it might not actually be. I don't know when the stealing money comes in and redistributing to the poor, if that is part of the core myth that existed at this point, or if it was just, hey, the guys in charge, the people who are bossing people around are evil. Time to just kick the crap out of people.
Which again isn't a Batman thing that he's doing. He's not fighting the establishment. He's fighting criminals.
The very first story is fighting an organized crime that exists to such an extent that it is probably a functional government. Well, because everyone in the town owes Boss Zuko.
Right. So
for the record, are we pronouncing it Zuko or Zucco?
It's probably Zuko because
that's way more entertaining.
It is. Me. I'm sure there's Avatar hints there, but I like to think of it because in Italian, I believe it's Zucchiero or something like that, or is sugar. I like the idea that his boss sugar. I don't know. It just makes me laugh. It's probably not. I think I'm incorrect. Boss Zuko. So Bruce says, all right, you're ready. I've trained you. Let's go back to that town where your family was killed and start figuring out who those guys were. So they go back, and he has Dick kind of dress up like a newspaper boy. And, of course, hey, you're new. You got to pay up to the boss any money that you make for protection. And, of course, Robin is on orders to agree and appear timid. He's in. Robin's in on the inside now. And he hears that this is who the boss is, follows them to the location where the boss is, tells Batman, But we see Boss Zuko, and I just love it because Boss Zuko is like that weird Hanna-Barbera or Chuck Jones mafia guy because he goes like, yeah, see, yeah.
I actually counted it up. 5.2% of Boss Zuko's vocabulary in this is C, and 1.4% is Batman.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So, for an example, it isn't enough, see? You've got to get more money out of our customers, see? I want to go to the butchers and the tailors. It's just so comical and so stereotypical. He's got cigar smoke coming out of everything. He's fat, he's sweaty, he's gross looking. It's so funny. So basically what Batman ends up doing, he says now he knows where this guy's going to strike. He starts getting all the guys who are leaning on these locations and just beating the crap out of them. And he's busting up this guy's operations. He goes to a casino and he wrecks the casino and like gets all these people to like just take all the money and run.
So one thing I want to point out about in that panel, so we've already seen some reuse of imagery and like character designs, because if you look at the origin story for Robin, it's very similar. Like there's a particular shot of Dick that is very much the shot of Batman looking down at his dead parents and saying, "Mother, Father, I have to fight against injustice the rest of my life." Same character design. We're going to see Cocaine Dandy a couple times.
Oh my god, that guy, yeah, the guy who looks like he's super high.
Cocaine Dandy.
Cocaine Dandy. We're going to put a picture of Cocaine Dandy up, but I just like that idea that that's what his name is now. Boss Zuko's furious. His operations are getting busted up, and a bat flies into his home, courtesy of Batman. Like a legit bat, not like
they shipped a box with a bat in it to Zuko's house.
Which, you know, the bat isn't dead. There's no holes in that box. It's like they did like the Sleeping with the Fishes thing, except they put a bat in a box, and it's kind of scary. And just to think about the fact that Batman probably had this bat and like trapped it, held it for a while, put it in like a roses box, shipped it to them, and was like, "Here you go. Here's a semi-vicious, starved animal."
One other thing that I want to call out, during Batman's rampage through all of the different spots, there's a line, "What'll I tell Boss Zuko? Just say, the Batman."
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When I read that, I couldn't help but think, just say no. How much better would Nancy Reagan's ad campaign
just say
have
the
been?
Batman?
Yes. Or better yet, the Batman becomes a third answer to a binary question. Yes, no,
or
and the Batman.
And the Batman. So in the Bat in the Box ship, you've got a letter where Batman calls Zuko out and he says, "Look, I want you to come to this location. We're going to have it out. We're going to settle this like men." It's an abandoned, or not really abandoned, it's a construction site of a skyscraper. These guys take an elevator up, and the first person they run into is Robin, and Robin starts beating the tar out of these guys. He's throwing crap at them, he's knocking them out, he's fighting them, he's kicking, he's punching, he's taking a lot of these men on, and he's very good. It's very impressive. And he gets in kind of a sore spot here where he's kind of trapped on this girder, and he falls and he's hanging there, and a guy comes to like step on his hands to like knock him off, and Robin swings and kicks him, kicking the gunman off the girder into space. That's a very code way for saying the child just killed someone. Robin's on the board. Robin's on the board. Body count 1 for Robin. Robin just kicked a man off of a building.
And it's interesting to note, from the very beginning, we're seeing a difference in Robin's fight style. This is showy. His first fight scene
He's tumbling
is in
a lot.
girders.
Yeah.
Like he is doing the monkey bars thing.
It's acrobatic.
Yes.
He's having an acrobatic fight scene, and it's very cool. Batman swings in to start fighting these guys because they all start pulling guns out to shoot the small child, like they probably should have started to do at the very beginning of this fight. And Batman ropes a dude who's trying to run away, hangs him by a girder, and says, "I want a confession out of you, Robin. Here, stand up here, and here's the acid that they use to kill your parents with. Start pouring it on the ropes." When this guy gets too uppity, and the guy goes, No, I'll tell you everything. Signs a confession, tells everything. Zuko sees this. He says, "You dirty squealer," pushes the guy off of the balcony. But what I really think is interesting here is that we're going to go back to that segment where the guy's tied up. Mm-hmm. Batman's interrogating him. And in the next panel where he's getting the confession, the guy is not tied up anymore. He has no rope around his neck. he's very much safe.
Yeah, he has been pulled up, untied. He has agreed, basically, all right, I'm going to write this.
Right. Now what's interesting is in this next panel, on the next page, when Zuko knocks the guy off the building, the first thing you read is, snap it, Robin! And I don't know if snap it is a cuss?
No, it's the camera.
I don't know.
It's the camera.
Okay, so...
Which is its own... So what happens is, if remembering what happens, he gets knocked off by Zuko. Batman stands there, and Robin shoots a picture of it so that they have photographic evidence of Zuko murdering a guy so that they can get him arrested.
Okay, so I'm going to count that as one for both of them.
Yes, they explicitly stand there while a guy they just gave an agreement of protection to gets murdered.
Yeah, that's one for each of them.
Yep.
So what I read that as...
Snap the rope? Or?
Bob Kane forgot to draw the rope in the last panel. The guy was still tied up, and when Zuko pushed him, it was going to hang him. But instead, he told Robin to snap the rope so he doesn't hang, and told Robin to basically kill that guy. And I was like, wow, that's really dark really quick.
Both of these interpretations are dark.
Neither of those is better than the other, but yours is far worse. Now that I read that, I'm like, oh my god, that's exactly what happened. Because they say, like, now we've got a picture of it, now we have a confession, you're screwed. Zuko gets put away. Robin says, like, well, that was great. And Batman's like, you did a great job. You know, would you like to stay with me and be my sidekick? And he goes, you know what? I think my parents would be okay with me doing this. And I'm like, I don't think your parents would be okay with you staying with a strange man who's teaching you how to fight people. But I don't know your parents very well. So maybe that's the thing that they would like.
The only things we know about them is that they were named John and Mary.
Right. And... there's the great part of this is in the last panel, and Bruce has a line that says, "Okay, you reckless young squirt, I had to whale you for jumping those men alone. Why didn't you wait for me?" And Robin says, "I didn't want to miss any of the fun. Say, I can't hardly wait till we go on our next case. I bet it'll be a corker." Thank you, 1940s dialogue. But the fact that they're like already chummy, and that's the last issue we're going to go into for this episode, and just like a couple of things with this one story. This is very much Batman. This is the most Batman story we've read the entire time, is this issue. And it's fantastic. It's fun. It's got Robin. It's got Batman. They're fighting criminals. They foil, an organized crime gang. This is closest to Falcone as we've ever seen for Batman. It's very much a Batman story. Batman stopping organized crime in a city, getting revenge.
I would almost say it's less of a Batman story and more of a Robin story. And I'm actually seeing a lot of echoes with, for me, the Batman era that resonates the most is actually like Greg Rucka. I think it was Rucka who had a run on Nightwing that I loved. That sense of I'm going away to Bloodhaven, establishing my own identity as Nightwing and taking on the crime issue there. And this has that same sense in a lot of ways. It's a separate location, a different city.
It's organized crime, it's not a supervillain.
Yeah. And
okay.
Bloodhaven has plenty of that, but it's more that feel of organized crime first and foremost, in the same way that Inner Gang is an organized crime group first and a bunch of supervillains second.
So, another thing I want to talk about is the night vision glasses that Batman has. Because, me, I gotta do a gear assessment. Night vision was a thing in the 30s. The first military version of night vision was by the German army as early as 1939, but the first version being developed by AEG, which is the German electric company, it's something in German, I looked this up, it was starting in 1935. So there is night vision technology being developed very early, but even before this comic was created. And it was used in the war. The first version for America was developed by Dr. Vladimir K. Zworykin for the Radio Corporation of America. And it was like a lot of infrared lights and shining it on stuff and big bulky versions of night vision. Yeah. It wasn't what you would imagine it is now for the military, but it was crude forms of night vision. So that was a thing that he could potentially sci-fi, and he would be like, oh yeah, I heard that was a thing that was happening. Oh, that's kind of neat. So that's not out of the realm of possibility for Batman to have. Okay, Robin. This is the thing that's been bothering me ever since I found out that Robin was supposed to be Robin Hood. Mm-hmm. in the cartoons, in comics now, in movies, Robin is decidedly a bird thing. You've got Tim Drake, who is the Red Robin. Very much a bird symbol on him. The Robin batarangs are called birdarangs.
Which I still can't believe.
It's so stupid, but that's what they're called. There's a lot of bird imagery for Robin. Joker calls him, like, Bird Boy a bunch of times in the animated series. He's decidedly a bird thing. Who screwed up in the DC offices and didn't do their homework to find out that Robin was supposed to be Robin Hood? It's the guy in the forest, not the bird. What happened there? Who messed that up? And I want to know because the bird's better.
Yeah.
The bird motif is so much better because it works.
More precisely, at least in my mind, I actually think that having at least some of the connotations of Robin Hood makes a ton of sense. But in terms of the depth of just the amount of jokes you can make about birds, there's so much more there.
It's so much easier because it's a bat and a bird, not a bat and a medieval legend. What? What? Who decided that was good?
That breaks the rule of
theme. It's just there's no theme here, and it's like it's so weird. It's so weird that is eventually no one wants to talk about that because in every origin of Robin in the cartoons, comics now, it's never spoken about. That's a weird thing to think about, is that we're missing that quintessential bit of huge backstory for Robin, that he is motifed off of Sherwood Forest bow guy.
Laughing at the people who are ostensibly stronger than him.
Right, and I just, it's really something interesting to think about now, because now you're never not going to think about that, is the fact that this is super wrong, and someone screwed up, but they were like, yours is better. Whoever it was, better idea. We're going with that. Because that'll sell more.
The way that I thought of Robin, in part because the very next story that we're going to go into next episode is the first appearance of the Joker. We have The Man Who Laughs one issue after The Boy Who Laughs.
The Laughing Boy, yeah.
And also, we do admittedly now have The Man Who Laughs as Batman.
Yeah, it's quirky Batman, it's Laughing Boy, sidekick. It's fun. Batman's fun right now, and it's interesting, and it's more engaging to a younger audience than dark, brooding, tortured.
There are two things I want to unpack there. The first is, especially from a kid's standpoint, you can still get a lot of value out of the aesthetics of brooding without being able to necessarily empathize with the specific parent's death thing. I mean, think about the animated series. In my mind, there's all of the aesthetics of brooding, dark.
And you know how that comes across, though? Bruce is a stick in the mud, and that's Robin's role, is to be humanizing. Robin's the kid analog. Whereas Batman, yeah, you can want to be Batman and you can want to play that, but Batman's not a happy person.
Yeah, but he has all the gadgets. He has all of the training. He is the one who can do anything. I'm puzzling all of these things through in my head, but it feels to me like the role of Robin is... It's the Tim Drake thing. Without Robin there, Batman just goes off the rails.
He spins. He spins out of control, and that's true.
But the point of Robin is, hey, he's somebody who I might be friends with, or I might be, but in terms of the favorite, it's all about reflecting and changing the dynamic of Batman.
Robin's the foil. Robin's there to ground Bruce. And that's not true now. Robin's here because Bruce is like, do you want to hang around? And he's like, yeah, sure, let's kick some ass. It's very interesting because even in the stories that we read later in Batman 1, Robin isn't there to check Bruce. He's not there to help Bruce, to humanize him, to bring him back down.
We don't have the obsession. We still don't have Batman as that. And I don't think we will until probably the 70s with...
Maybe.
Denny
O'Neil.
I suspect that'll be the point where we first get that. At this point, they're just two people who have more fun going on adventures together. And
which is weird because, only parental death brought them together.
Yeah.
Hey, your parents are dead. That's cool. Do you want to go have some adventures?
But
yeah.
That's the thing is, at this point, the parental death is an origin story rather than
It's not character.
Yes, exactly that.
It's a means for getting its plot as opposed to character. It's a means for them getting together as opposed to describing who Robin and who Batman are. It's video game logic.
Yeah. God, yeah.
So we've covered a lot in this episode. We were kind of meandering there in the beginning episodes, or the beginning issues. But I swear we're going to get issues and episodes sorted out. We're never going to say the same one twice, but we're going to get it right one day. We're going to call issues and not episodes.
Someday that may happen.
Someday, but it is not this day. We covered a lot today. We got to, I think, a really good point for people when it comes to Batman, which is Robin. Batman doing Batman stuff before that with Hugo Strange, with the spies, and now we have Robin. This is now a Batman you should recognize. It only took 11.
Just shy of a year, at about 12 pages. Well, let's average it at about 9 pages per issue. Right.
Batman's become Batman, which is more than I can say again for Superman, who has a year and is so unrecognizable. And I can't wait till we get to Superman because it's so funny. It's so entertaining. But Batman becomes Batman real quick.
Or at least he becomes a Batman.
Or Batman you can put your finger on.
And I would argue that we're not quite there. We have... I would say we're 75% of the way there right now. I think the next episode, the current plans that we're going to go through the entirety of just one issue, Batman #1, which is a quarterly, which has 5 stories total, one of which is a re-copy-paste of the Batman origin story. Right. So 4 full stories.
A Joker issue, a Hugo Strange issue, which is the Monster Men.
Oh, wow, yeah. All 4 of those are recognizable supervillains.
The Catwoman issue, and then another Joker issue.
Next episode, we are by and large going to see real Batman.
So we're getting ready to go to the next episode, which is going to be Batman #1.
DC Detectives can be found on iTunes and Stitcher.
To stay in the know, check out our Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr pages.
Visual aids, episode notes, and more can be found on DCDetectivespodcast.com.
The dynamic duo was all prepped and ready for action. I'll admit it happened a lot sooner than I would have guessed. Robin's first kill came as a surprise to both of us. Who knew the kid had it in him? We were getting somewhere, though. Things were beginning to look the way they should. Caped Crusader and Boy Wonder, even Hugo Strange, stopped by to pay a visit. This was progress, but we weren't going to fool ourselves. There were still missing pieces. They were caricatures of classic characters, color and light, but nothing behind their vivacious exteriors. We had our main players, though. The game could really begin.